Yes, Joe Biden has COVID. We will talk about that in a moment, but Joe Biden also has sort of bigger problems. Joe Biden's approval has again hit another record low for the presidency. These are not good numbers, and I will defend any day that Joe Biden is the better choice than Donald Trump and that Joe Biden has made better decisions than Donald Trump. But I also can't lie to you and say that the country is responding super positively to Joe Biden. His approval rating is really low. The average is now down to 37.4. That's an average of recent approval polls for Joe Biden. 57% of Americans now disapprove. This is the most disapproval and least approval of Joe Biden since he became president of the United States. Compared to prior presidents, you have to go still all the way back to Truman in the 1940s to find a president that on month 18 of his presidency had an approval this low. You compare to even Trump had a higher approval at this point in time in his presidency. Barack Obama, George W. Bush, way better than Biden at this point. Bill Clinton, George H.W. Bush, Ronald Reagan, Jimmy Carter, Gerald Ford, John F. Kennedy, Dwight D. Eisenhower. You indeed have to go all the way back to Harry Truman in what would have been 1946 to find a president with a lower approval 18 months in than Joe Biden. And part of what is going on is the feeling, and it is not an altogether incorrect feeling, that not enough is happening, that there are not enough accomplishments. And we talked yesterday on the bonus show about the new idea to get something done on climate for Joe Biden is to do some executive orders. And the executive orders are sort of like, okay, but they're not great. And the good news for Joe Biden is that if we continue to believe this notion that it's the economy, stupid, that what the public uses as a proxy to whether the president is doing a good job is the economy. And every indication is that inflation has peaked and that the July numbers, which will be out in mid-August, will be lower inflation. Gas prices have now been declining for something like a month or more. Let me look at exactly when. The June 14th was the peak, and it is now July 22nd. So basically 5+ weeks, gas prices have been declining and quite precipitously. So if that continues to go in that direction, if the stock market steadies as it has shown some signs of doing, it's likely that Joe Biden's approval will improve, but it is currently not good. If you looked at the betting markets, who do you think will win the presidential nomination for the Democrats in 2024? Not who do you plan to support? Who do you like? Who do you think will win? Joe Biden's chances in the betting markets are again declining, and Gavin Newsom is there in second place right alongside Kamala Harris. And the margin right now, let's put it a different way. More people believe that either Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris will be the 2024 nominee than the number that believe it will be Biden. Individually, Biden still has a plurality, but combined, people believe it will be Newsom or Harris more than they believe it will be Joe Biden. So remains to be seen. We're watching that. We're watching polling. We're watching accomplishments. And of course, we're also tracking Joe Biden's health as he does indeed have COVID with reportedly mild symptoms. Let's talk about that next. You knew they were going to do it. You knew that when Joe Biden got COVID, the anti-vax was going to come out of the woodwork. The glee about Biden having COVID was going to come out of the woodwork, and conspiracy theories were going to come out of the woodwork. And we have all of it for you today. Let's start with a Fox News contributor saying that Joe Biden got COVID as karma for pretending to have cancer. Now, this is stupid for two reasons. Number one, Biden didn't pretend to have cancer. And number two, Biden already had COVID before he made the cancer gaffe by all reasonable understandings of the incubation period of COVID. So let's look at this clip and then discuss.
I hate to be that annoyingly optimistic guy, but there's no better time in the world to be sick than right now, today, right, in history, because we have more opportunity to heal from it now than we've ever had. And there's no better place than probably the White House to be when you get sick. I mean, you have all the resources in front of you. My experience with COVID, the two times I've had it, The first time I had a little bit of a fever, the second time I had a cold. And I think that's what everyone has been saying over and over again. So I hope...
Well, not everyone, not the million people that died. But yes, many, many, many people have mild symptoms, and that's true.
And pray that that's what the president experiences. I don't want any bad health on him. I think life comes at you fast. I think when you're pretending to have cancer one day and you've got COVID the next, you might want to recalibrate how you treat things and how you talk. But I'm not going to, I don't wish bad luck on him, and I'm not going to say that's the reason why. It's just maybe it's a good opportunity for him to have a reality check. I get so frustrated with these politicians that think they have to connect themselves to every dire thing that happens in an American's life. And I think President Biden, his little statement on cancer yesterday just is proof of that politicians have taken that too far. So what I hope is he recovers fast. It doesn't hurt him that well, that much at all. And then when he recovers, he reconsiders, just how politicians work on stuff like this. Because saying he had cancer the way he did and backtracking it the way they did, that's karma, man. You don't want to...
It's karma, man. He just misspoke, guys. I mean, this is very, very stupid. As a reminder, yesterday when speaking, Joe Biden talked about have cancer rather than had cancer. He's not pretending to have cancer. I mean, to pretend to have cancer, you'd have to be able to say, I have this type of cancer and it's a lie. He just misspoke.
My mother drove us, and rather than us be able to walk. And guess what? The first frost, you know what was happening? You had to put on your windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer. And why can't, for the longest time, Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation.
All right. So he just misspoke. And then the other thing, that it's some kind of karma because Biden pretended to have cancer. Typically, it's at least 2 days of incubation with COVID. And it was announced very early Thursday morning, Biden making the cancer gaffe on Wednesday afternoon. The idea that the timing even works doesn't work. These people are very, very strange and they have extraordinarily bizarre ideas, but not as bizarre as the ones I'm going to show you next. Let's now look at around the country, so to speak, a tour of right-wing media, more reactions to Joe Biden's COVID diagnosis. We will start with OAN. This is One American News anchor Allison Steinberg gleefully reporting that President Joe Biden has COVID and asking her followers to weigh in to predict, is he going to die?
Well, what do you know? Double vax, double boosted Biden just got COVID. What do you think is going to happen? Will he come back and say he's so glad he got the shots because it could have been much worse? Or do you think he's going to... Let me know your thoughts down below.
Yeah, when she says, do you think he's gonna, she does kind of like the neck slice motion. I don't know if that's some kind of strange filter, by the way, on this individual. It's unclear. So that's on OAN. Allison Steinberg gleeful about it. Then we go over to Newsmax, where a Newsmax guest wishes Biden the best, but I wish him the best, but.
So again, speedy recovery. We wish him the best, but I think it's time that we really refocus on some of the issues that we have here at home and in our backyards before we go down the path of another double booster and, vaccines for kids under 5.
Aren't those issues in our backyard? Like, that's very strange. We should focus on domestic issues rather than things like whether Americans get COVID in America. Sounds like a domestic issue, ma'am. I wish him the best, but I'm against racism, but I'm against the N-word, but. And then on Fox News, here's another idea. Joe Biden actually had COVID last Friday when he was in Jerusalem, or as Donald Trump used to call it, Sharushalem. And that this is Harris Faulkner's idea.
COVID. I'm Harris Faulkner. You were in the Faulkner Focus. The White House has said that he is experiencing what they are calling mild symptoms. He's now in isolation. The president has referenced his health during his recent visit to Jerusalem. In his own words, let's watch.
Right.
I was making a speech, and I had a terrible headache. Excuse me, a terrible headache. And sorry. My swallow's wrong. I had a terrible headache. This is years ago. and I did a very stupid thing.
So again, the president's struggling a bit there. We do know the White House doctors, the White House has announced that they do not believe his symptoms from COVID began before yesterday. That was last Friday, what we showed you. Just for perspective.
That's perspective in the Faulkner Focus on Fox News. I mean, listen, the timing of it suggests that he probably didn't have COVID last Friday. I'm guessing that with a cough like that, he would be tested. Doesn't really make sense. The timing of it doesn't really make sense. By the way, it does bear mentioning that we know Donald Trump knew he had COVID during that presidential debate with Joe Biden, and he found a way to not have to test at the venue, to just show up and say, I had a negative test. And that's crazy. That's completely and totally nuts. So there was no mention of that by Fox News at the time. But here's a story that they will gladly speculate on, even if it doesn't really make too much sense. So basically, as expected, reporting on Biden's COVID diagnosis, anti-vax, glee, speculation about whether he will die, conspiracies about karma and pretending to have cancer, just about everything you could imagine. We have the next David Pakman Show viewer town hall coming up Tuesday, July 26th at 6 p.m. Eastern. Everyone's welcome to call in. We will open the phone lines via Discord, and I will just take questions, question after question after question. It will be streaming live on the Pakman Live YouTube channel. That's the other YouTube channel, youtube.com/Pakman Live. I hope you'll be there. And I also hope that you'll sign up at joinpakman.com and become a member. When you are a member, you get a priority phone line to call into the town halls, which is, I would say, a beautiful thing. You can use the coupon code OBAMNA to get a discount off of your membership at joinpakman.com. We'll take a quick break. Great to see you here on this Friday show. Don't forget that the best way to support the David Pakman Show is by becoming a member, which gives you access to the daily bonus show, the regular show with no commercials. You also get access to our entire archive of every episode dating back a really long time and plenty of other awesome membership perks. Go to joinpakman.com and use the coupon code BETTER21 for a huge discount. Joinpakman.com. The David Pakman Show is a community-funded program. You can sign up at joinpakman.com. It's the place to do it. And you can use the coupon code BIGVOTING22 for a discount off of the cost of a membership. You'll, of course, get the world-famous, award-winning bonus show. I believe the top David Pakman Show bonus show, probably in the world, and so many other great things. Sign up at joinpakman.com. Let's now speak to people from the audience. Yes, there is an audience. Without that audience, I'm a guy in a room with a microphone, and that's sad. You can use Discord to get in touch with me. That's davidpakman.com/Discord. Let's start today with Elias from Fort Worth. Elias, welcome. What's going on?
Hello. Should people make an effort to say correctly hard to pronounce names? So, for example, I don't want to correct you, but you said my name wrong. It's Elias, like the Spanish way. So,
yes, people should make such an effort.
all right, thank you.
No problem. Take care. Okay, here we go. Let's go next to let's go to Paul Garcia from Mexico. Paul, welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. You've been talking about how abortion and gun control can activate Democrats' vote. Do you think a Trump associate indictment can activate Republicans to vote?
You know, maybe to some degree, but not really, in the sense that when it comes to the gun safety issue and Roe v. Wade and Democrats being activated, it's because Democrats want to change those things by voting for different people. Although certainly there will be Trumpists who might hear, oh, this Trump associate was indicted or whatever, who are they going to vote for? I mean, it's like voting for your local member of Congress isn't really going to do anything related to that in any kind of direct way. So I don't think it will engage and kind of involve people and excite them in the same way. No.
Do you think in like a Texas where the Republican governor is really dumb and everything is going the wrong way, do you think we're going to see a big change like blue wave?
I think there's no evidence right now that that's what's going to happen. I mean, you did see, if you look at Biden versus Trump in Texas in 2020, it was the closest margin for a presidential race in Texas for a while. I don't remember exactly when, but for a while. And so I do think Texas is becoming more purple, but I don't expect any overwhelming blue wave in Texas in the next few years. No.
Okay, no, thank you.
All right, no problem. There's Paul from Mexico. Good question. Appreciate that. Let's go next to, where do we want to go? There's so many people who want to be on. Let's go to Saigon Mike. Saigon Mike, you're next. Saigon Mike, you're unmuted, but I'm wondering if you have the wrong audio device selected. And last chance for Saigon Mike to fix your audio. All right. That's too bad. Saigon Mike is gone. Let's go next to Steve from Chicago. Steve, welcome.
Hey, David, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes. So I was wondering, I know we've been kind of talking about, you brought up Joe Rogan a little bit ago, and he said, when he brought up his likening for DeSantis, and you kind of brought up he maybe doesn't really know what he's talking about, but do you think the possibility maybe that he sees more in line, even though he is a progressive, he sees more in line with some of the stuff that DeSantis is doing and isn't really happy with some of the stuff that like Democratic presidents are doing, like with Biden?
No, that sounds weird to me. I mean, if Rogan is more progressive, he couldn't possibly like what DeSantis is doing if he knows what DeSantis is doing.
But but all I'm saying is that the way that he can still be progressive, but not like that thinks that the Democratic Party is going too far, and that DeSantis and people like DeSantis isn't as far right as they're actually saying, or as extreme.
Well, I mean, you're saying, is it possible that something Rogan hasn't said is what's in his head? And it's like, I guess so, but we have no reason to think that that's what Rogan thinks. It's sort of like mind reading,
No, like I guess an example for me is that the way that the progressive movement has been going with trying to push like puberty blockers on children and the trans athletes, which is like, I know, a subject that Joe Rogan opposes the way that's going, and that someone maybe on the right that would be more open to his view of like how that should be played.
I'm not aware of the movement among progressives to push puberty blockers on kids. Can you tell me more about that?
Wasn't the health secretary literally out there saying that the kids should be able to transition and use puberty blockers if they feel like they're in the wrong body?
Okay. Because first you said that there was a movement pushing puberty blockers on kids. It sounds like what you're saying is one Biden administration official said that for the tiny percentage of people in that situation and the subsection within that wants to pursue such drugs, that it should be possible. Is that what you actually meant?
I mean, Biden
the first thing you said was that progressives are pushing puberty blockers on kids, but then your example wasn't that, was it?
I mean, okay, pushing the idea of using puberty blockers on kids, if you want to be more straightforward about it.
Well, when you say that, it sounds like you're saying that there's a movement to just convince children to take puberty blockers, but there isn't any movement like that, is there? It seems there's a movement.
I would say so.
Okay, so who is going around saying, "Hey, what we want is we want more kids to take puberty blockers"? Who's saying that?
The Biden administration for kids who want to take puberty blockers.
Oh, but so what you're saying is the Biden administration has a position that in certain situations, for the tiny percentage of kids who identify as being in the wrong body, for lack of a better term, and for whom medical professionals believe it would be appropriate to make that decision, it should be a decision they are allowed to make, right? Because that's very different than they are pushing puberty blockers on kids.
I would say anyone, like, I guess the.
Well, let me give you
Joe
an
Rogan's
example to make it really clear.
I guess let me clarify. I guess from my spot before you give your example. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Just so you can get your comeback. So I guess from Joe Rogan's perspective is that the kid, like a kid that age, let's just say 5, 6, younger than that, like they can't enter into contracts, they can't do other stuff because they don't have the mental capacity to actually understand.
Yep.
If they're maybe would be in the wrong body or not in the wrong body.
Yep.
Or anything like that. And I'm not talking about adults or anything. I'm talking about kids.
Got it.
That it would be, and the harmful effects that could have on puberty blockers with them and their mind not being able to fully understand what's going on.
Would you apply that same logic to children getting vaccines where the kids can't actually consent themselves, the parents are doing it for them, and they don't understand the full impact of those, and once you do it, you can't undo the fact that you've gotten a vaccine? Would you apply the same standard to the vaccines? I'm curious.
Vaccines, it's very interesting. No, I guess I wouldn't, but I guess I would. I guess I'm going back to, like, do kids actually understand? I think a kid can understand more of a vaccine if the parent talks about it to them.
So it sounds like you're saying it's actually not about whether the kids can or can't sign contracts or are of legal age. It's whether they can understand a concept based on what their parents tell them. That's the standard you're now laying out?
No, I'm not saying there's a standard. I'm just saying that.
Well, I'm asking what's your
like
standard.
Forcing. Oh, my standard is
right.
I don't think I don't think kids understand exactly what they're doing with the puberty blockers and more of the long-term effects that could have on them versus like a vaccine, I guess, which is different. I mean,
okay.
I'm sure.
But
that
like in a few weeks, my daughter will be due for vaccines. She can't understand them, and no matter how I explain it to her, she's not going to understand them. By your standard about understanding, I shouldn't be allowed to get her vaccinated, right?
I'm not saying I don't think she'd be allowed to get her vaccinated. I'm not.
Right.
I'm
what
not
I'm
saying,
asking
I'm
you
saying,
is, you said the standard that makes vaccines different than puberty blockers is the kids better understand vaccines rather than their understanding of puberty blockers. I just explained my daughter doesn't understand vaccines at all. By your standard, I should not be able to get her vaccinated in a couple of weeks based on your standard.
I didn't say that was a standard of mine. I was saying.
No, I literally asked you what's your standard, and you said that's your standard. My standard is they can't understand it.
Not on vaccines. I guess I was saying my understanding would be able to explain vaccines versus puberty blockers and all the side effects moving forward, transitioning, everything like that. I mean,
okay.
But again, my basic question is, my basic going back to the Joe Rogan part was more under, and I guess, I don't know why, I guess my pushing is, I'm not saying they're just like going up and giving up kids puberty blockers, but more of the emphasis on transitioning younger kids when the long-term effects, they probably won't be able to understand what's actually going on with their body and everything.
Got it. So let's now drill down to what we are talking about. So you're not saying that they are, just follow me step by step. You're not saying anyone is forcing puberty blockers physically into children, right? You're not making the claim anybody's doing that.
No, if that came across that way, that's not the way.
No, I'm not saying it. Let me clarify. So you're not saying anyone is forcibly being given puberty blockers. Good. Second, is there any campaign to go out and say, hey, kids, consider puberty blockers? It's cool. Like, is there a PR campaign, or you're saying there isn't that either?
I wouldn't say there's a PR campaign to like say it's cool, but I think there's a campaign / strategy of movement of like putting more of a spotlight on them for younger kids, basically, in with doctors, schools, within the administration, everything.
So you're saying that there are schools where they do presentations and they go, hey, kids, if you're not feeling good about your body, how about puberty blockers? That's happening somewhere?
I wouldn't say that they would say puberty blockers in there, but I'd say within schools, they're more or less, I guess, going into like gender identity and everything, and sexuality and everything like that, which would bring the conversation moving towards that.
Do you have any evidence that in schools where they talk about the fact that trans people exist, they're pushing puberty blockers? Is there a single example of such a school?
I mean, wait, do like the example where they're mentioning puberty blockers in like the teachers said the word puberty blockers?
Yeah, where they're saying not when issues of gender are taught in schools, where puberty blockers are being talked about by teachers and presented as something to pursue or something. You said, remember that at the beginning of the call, you said pushing. The word was pushing. I'm looking for someone pushing it.
I'm not saying, again, I like I said, I don't think that they're like the teachers themselves are saying, are pushing puberty blocker. Like they're going and saying puberty blockers. I'm saying that the thought process and the transition to the end result with transitioning puberty blockers is in like, you may not like pushing the whole idea. Again, if adult wants to make a decision, I'm not against anything adult wants to do. I'm saying kids specifically push an idea.
No, Steve, I get that, but you started the call by saying that something is being pushed, and we've gone piece by piece, and you're acknowledging you can't actually identify anyone pushing it.
I mean,
everyone I ask you, is this person pushing it? Is that person pushing it? You go, well, no.
So what
and
is
now
your,
you're saying I'm not even saying it.
What is your definition of pushing it?
Promoting, encouraging.
Like, yeah, I mean, the Biden administration is encouraging kids.
Okay, no, but no, Steve, now we're back to the beginning. That was your first claim, which already fell apart. All right, Steve, thank you for the call. I'm going to let you go. By the way, I'm not even taking a position for or against puberty blockers for kids. Like, I don't know enough about it to say, maybe it's not a good idea. Maybe I'm not taking a position. That caller had no idea what he was talking about. Okay. Let's go next to Jim from Chattanooga. Jim, welcome.
Hi, David. Longtime viewer. How are you doing?
Doing well.
I guess my question is how to reframe kind of basically the basic idea is there's going to be pain. And I think Democrats are struggling with this. Basically, a lot of the problems are right now that we're suffering from are from kicking the can down the road. And a lot of the solutions tend to have short-term sacrifice involved. How do we reframe that so people that are in their 60s who will never enjoy a working universal healthcare system are willing to make that sacrifice?
Well, this isn't really like a new thing that humans do. I mean, I think for most humans with a normal emotional landscape, the idea that we might do something that's good for the species we belong to, even if I won't personally benefit from it, is still a completely reasonable thing to do. I mean, you know, the interstate highway system took a very long time to build, and many of the people that supported their tax dollars going to it didn't live long enough to enjoy it. And I mean, it doesn't seem, I think the weird thing to me isn't why, the weird thing to me would be that more people wouldn't, of course, understand that the way things are, some of the good things we have today, we have because people who didn't benefit from them were okay supporting them financially. And that as a result, we should do the same thing to keep improving society. It would be, if we have to explain that to people, then we're in real trouble.
So you don't think the attitude around that has changed?
I think that it hasn't changed in terms of people's emotional understanding of it, but I do think that the political system we have, including these terms of 2, 4, and 6 years that don't really encourage long-term thinking. They encourage what can I do to justify my next reelection. That definitely is not good.
Right. And I think that's just a feature.
Yes.
A bug, but yeah.
Absolutely.
Our current system. Thank you, David.
All right. Thank you.
Maybe just one more thing. I'm
Sure.
getting a vasectomy next week, and I thought maybe you could comment on that. I'm 36, no kids.
That's interesting. You know, many urologists won't do a no kids vasectomy for people your age. What was the conversation like?
Well, I found one in Georgia, so I'll be traveling.
Oh, so you're admitting it was hard to find one. You had to go to find one in a different place.
Not just find one, David. Find one that's affordable, like under $2,000. It's not just it. If you don't have money, you can't just go. I don't know. People think that these things are just out there to go grab off a shelf somewhere.
But did you talk to urologists who said, you know, for someone in your situation, I don't really do vasectomies. You don't have kids. You're only 36.
I honestly didn't even look here in Tennessee because I didn't want to deal with it.
Oh, okay. All right, good. Well, so why are you doing? You're just very sure you never want to have kids.
Well, and I live in Tennessee. I mean, I don't want to be forced into fatherhood. Sorry, I just don't.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, I think we had a trigger law here. So when Roe was overturned, I think it's 6 weeks now. It might be 6 weeks, but it may be
I see what you're saying.
than that.
I see what you're saying. Any thought to maybe freezing sperm so you have the option?
No, there's probably a couple little Jimmies floating out there somewhere. They can, you know. I'm just kidding, David. I'm just kidding. No, I haven't considered that.
Okay. All right, very good. Jim, thank you. Good luck with the procedure.
Love you, David. Thank you.
All right, take care. Love you, buddy. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. If you're holding, don't hang up. We are going back to the phones on what has been an eventful day. Stand by, right back to the phones in a moment. If you value what we do at the David Pakman Show, remember to support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/David Pakman Show, where you can get access to behind the scenes videos, the daily bonus show, the commercial-free daily show, as well as special discounts on merch, including hats, hoodies, mugs, and t-shirts. You can support the show for as little as $2 a month. Check it out at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. Let's go back to Discord and hear from a few more people. davidpakman.com/Discord is the place to be. Let's go to Scott from Scotland, who is Scottish. Welcome, Scott. Scottish Scott from Scotland, you are self-muted. Unmute yourself, please, in order to be able to talk to me. You have muted yourself locally. Please unmute yourself so that we can talk. And final chance for Scottish Scott from Scotland to unmute yourself. I've unmuted you. You do need to unmute yourself to be able to talk to me. I would love to hear whether Scottish Scott from Scotland even really has a Scottish accent, but can't seem to get it all technically happening. And Scott is gone. That's too bad. All right, let's go to our friend John Paul Jones. John Paul Jones, welcome back.
Hey, David. Thank you for having me on. I have 3 questions and an apology and sort of an apology too. So my first question is: Have you been thinking about going on Crystal Conference? Second question, I want to ask you. There was an article in Reuters about a month and a half ago about how Biden doesn't think he has an off-ramp for Vladimir Putin in the war in Ukraine. If you were in Biden's shoes, what off-ramp would you be willing to give Putin? And third, I started a little progressive blog about 3 months ago. I've already posted my first 2 articles. If I were to send them to you on Twitter, would you be willing to read them? And finally, I just want to apologize for my behavior in the previous 2 calls. I understand I haven't been the best caller.
Oh my God. So let's see. So let's go reverse order. I don't remember your previous calls, so no need to apologize. 2, if you send me articles on Twitter, I can't even look at my Twitter feed. It's so overloaded. So I basically just look at the verified feed. I know that that's very elitist of me, but it's impossible to see anything. I get so many messages, and I'm honestly just too busy to be reviewing other people's projects right now. Number 2, if I was in Biden's shoes, I guess going in reverse order, we're now in number 3, but if I was in Biden's shoes, what sort of an off-ramp could I imagine for Putin? I've talked about this before. It's probably something where he gets to stay in some of the regions he's already in, like the Donetsk and Luhansk or something. I don't know. I mean, I don't love saying that, but it's probably the type of off-ramp that he needs. And then what was the first question?
Have you been thinking about going on Kristen with Kyle and friends?
Oh, no. I mean, listen, I can't. It's not. They would have to invite me. It's not. Have I been thinking? It's not up to me. They'd have to invite me.
Okay. Well, I mean, do you know of any other progressive YouTubers that could offer me some advice?
Advice? What would you want advice from progressive YouTubers?
I'm starting a progressive blog.
Rather than look for, I would just start the blog. Just start the blog and grow the blog rather than getting advice from people. The advice is just do it. Do it as well as you possibly can. If you build it, they will come.
Okay, well, thank you, David. I just want to let you. Can I just let you know who I'm named after?
I'm guessing you're named after the bassist for Led Zeppelin, right? I mean, John Paul Jones.
Actually, not. No, the thing I'm actually named after. My name comes from the founder of the American Navy, John Paul Jones.
Got it. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Thank you, John Paul.
Okay. Well, once again, I'm sorry for my previous 2 calls.
Apology unnecessary. I have no memory of the calls. There is John Paul Jones. What a phone call. Let's go next. I'm told that Scottish Scott from Scotland has fixed his problems. Scottish Scott, you're back. What's going on?
Hey, David, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, sorry about that. I just saw your video on YouTube, and so I had to download Discord again and get up and running. And yeah, I wasn't quite used to getting it to work and didn't know how to unmute myself.
Are you sure you're really Scottish?
What makes you say that?
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Go ahead. What's on your mind?
That obviously. Yeah, I'm just really looking forward to the final hearing of the January 6th committee tomorrow. I just wondered what you're thinking in anticipation of, like, who's going to be there, what sort of testimony we might expect, and how the Trumpists at large might sort of respond to it.
Well, unfortunately, because this is the Friday show, that hearing was last night, and I know that you've been in a coma for 48 hours, so you wouldn't know that. But I believe what happened / is expected is that Donald Trump's former deputy national security advisor will testify. Donald Trump's attorney, a White House attorney, Pat Cipollone, is expected / did testify. And I am looking forward to / really enjoyed it last night, if you understand what I'm saying.
I get you. It's let's just say that all the TV wires melted yesterday due to all the heat that we're experiencing in the UK just now.
Well, anyway, isn't it like 3 days earlier in Scotland or something like that?
3 days earlier? How
Yeah,
do you mean?
that's why you just haven't gotten the hearing yet.
Yeah. We're actually time traveling. I can see into your future.
Thank you.
But no. See, and you made a video earlier about the what was it again? The reaction from Trump supporters if he actually does become indicted by Merrick Garland or whomever. And if I remember correctly, you thought that there could potentially be among his strongest cult followers a really strong, violent reaction.
Yes.
And I'm not so sure. I think yes, there will be a certain violent reaction, but in terms of like mass protests of thousands of people all gathering together, I just get the impression that they're too shattered and shrapnelled, I should say, at the moment, and they're just too far spread, and they can't organise themselves well enough. And B, I don't know, just do you think they're that far gone that if he were to be indicted, people would see that as, oh, they're lying, it's fake news, etc., or would that almost be like a wake-up call for a lot of his most brainwashed
No, the
supporters?
cultists would say that it's all a political witch hunt. They would say this is an outrage, and I think you're right. They wouldn't do like mass peaceful protests. You would just have these small violent cells going completely berserk. Scott, I got to run. I appreciate the call and hearing about all of it. Let's see if we can chat with a couple of other people. How about Connor from Atlanta, Georgia? Connor, welcome.
How you doing, David?
I'm doing well.
Awesome. So I wanted to ask exactly about Biden running in 2024 for a second term. If people who, because I'm more of a centrist, I don't really, I'm a little conflicted about the 2024 election right now because I guess the running up for the Republicans are is Ron DeSantis. I don't think Trump stands a chance running again. I don't know if Biden would be good enough for a second term just simply because of his cognitive ability currently. So what exactly do you think on that? Because I don't know if I'm just very conflicted right now for 2024.
Well, listen, speculations about cognitive ability aside, I just don't think Joe Biden's running in 2024. I don't think he's interested in it. I think he would have a very tough time winning. He'll be 82. I just don't think he's going to run. And I know people say, but David, he keeps saying his intention is to run. Yeah, I know his intention is to run, and I don't think he's going to do it. So I don't think you're going to end up in a situation, quite frankly, where you'll have to figure out how you feel about Joe Biden's cognition. I think he's just not going to be a candidate.
Well, who do you think should be the running up then?
Listen, I think there's a lot of people, a lot of rising stars in the Democratic Party. We've talked about Gavin Newsom's political skill. I've mentioned I really like Jamie Raskin. I like Stacey Abrams. I like John Ossoff. I think Pete Buttigieg would do really well now that he has more name recognition. Maybe not right away. Maybe we've got to wait another cycle or two for him. But I think there's a lot of really smart people who would be good in terms of the performance piece of what it takes to be president.
What about it's funny you mentioned John Ossoff and Stacey Abrams because I do live in Georgia. What do you think of Warnock?
Yeah, I mean, I think that his demeanor, I love him personally. I think that something about his demeanor maybe seems like a less obvious win compared to some of the other people I mentioned, but he's very skilled. I just don't think he's yet as skilled politically as some of the other folks I mentioned.
Right. Do you think we should get a Democratic president in there who's religious? Because Raphael Warnock comes from a religious background.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know at this point whether that really matters. You sort of have to play to religiosity, but I don't think you have to pretend to be deeply religious necessarily. It just has to be plausible that you follow a religion. I think it's going to be less and less of an issue over time, although still for the evangelical voters in particular, it really does matter.
Right. Okay, I see. Well, that's all I needed, David. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Connor. Very much appreciate that. All right, everybody. That's going to do it for today. We don't have time for more calls today, but we will in the future. And I hope to hear from people next time. Thank you for joining me. We'll take a quick break and be right back. Follow us on social media. Interact with the David Pakman Show community. See exclusive content. See when we're taking calls live. And stay up to date on other big show announcements. We post daily. Find us on Reddit, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, and TikTok. All right, it is time for the Friday mailbag. You can email info@davidpakman.com if you have something you'd like to say, ask, complaint, whatever the case may be. Also, anytime you post on YouTube or reply to us on Twitter or whatever, it might end up featured in the mailbag. You just never know. But let's get into the first one. Colin wrote in with a beautiful anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Colin wrote in about the Khazar influence in U.S. politics, saying, David, if you really had any intention of being a good American patriot, please check out your relatives' dealings in U.S. politics. Obviously, you won't and dare not. That's Colin. Now, this is something called the Khazar myth. This is an anti-Semitic trope. It has been largely abandoned, although some really hardcore anti-Semites still talk about it. The idea is that Ashkenazi Jews like me, whose lineage goes to Eastern Europe, that our lineage is basically fake, and that I really descended from Khazars, who are a multi-ethnic Turkic peoples, semi-nomadic and blah, blah, blah. Basically, the idea is even the people we claim to be is a lie. This has been extraordinarily widely debunked. It's nonsense. Only the most hardcore anti-Semites still push it. But that's Colin, and we do have some of them in our audience, that's for sure. Rob wrote in and says, David, sir, the new haircut looks spectacular. When you go to your stylist, what exactly do you ask for? Love the show. Keep up the good work. That's Rob in Cincinnati. Well, listen, Rob, I've been going to the same hairdresser for over a decade. So at this point, she says, same thing, just shorter. I go, yep, same thing we've been doing. And then that's really it. But if I had to start from scratch, I think what I would say is I part my hair on this side. I want scissors all around, no buzzers or clippers other than for the sideburns and, the back of my neck. And just kind of, this is the shape. Or maybe I would even take a screenshot of my show and say, this is the haircut I'm looking for. I think that's the best advice I can offer. Alex wrote in about people making guns at home. A recent horrible shooting, guns were made at home. And Alex says, hey, David, I just heard your good point about people making guns at home. However, this got me thinking about how absurd this situation is. For example, terrorists make their bombs at home. So should bombs be legal because we can't stop literally all bomb attacks? Should theft be legal because we can't stop all thieves? Should murder be legal because we can't catch all murderers? Mitigation and deterrent are words that exist. Yeah, on the entire, so after the shooting where I don't even remember which one it was because there's so many. Was it the July 4th one where the guns were made at home? Okay. You had some people on the right, the pro-gun people, saying this is why gun control does nothing. You can't stop people if they're really determined from getting guns. They can just make them at home. And of course, the reaction is, oh, no, I'm sorry. It was the Japanese shooting, the assassination of former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. And the thing was, you can barely buy guns in Japan, but they just made them at home. If in the United States, every would-be shooter, and I'm talking about individual homicides, mass shootings, and suicides, if every would-be shooter in the United States could only get access to a firearm by making it at home, the number of shootings would go down dramatically. Dramatically. I know what you're saying. Well, but you could make the gun at home. Yes, most people don't know how to do it. Many who could research it to figure it out would say that's too much work. I don't want to do that. And the number of people who would be dissuaded from shooting anyone if they had to make their gun at home is an incredible number. And sure, somebody will make their gun at home. I understand. But the whole point, as Alex points out here, is mitigation and deterrent. And if you had to make a gun in order to shoot someone, number of shootings goes down dramatically. Dustin says about my commentary on Jesse Lee Peterson being homophobic, but also being gay. Dustin says, lethal takedown and all totally true. However, you end the clip by saying you're uncomfortable with Peterson's role as a counselor to young men. The implication is your discomfort stems from him being gay. I don't think this matches your values, and it's a terrible thing to imply. That is not at all what I meant. The reason I'm uncomfortable with Jesse Lee Peterson mentoring young men is because he does this thing that many in the religious community do, which is they're not therapists. They're completely unlicensed to be in that role, but they loosely use the term counseling. Sometimes they use coaching. That's what I have a problem with. Not the fact that he's gay. And in general, the type of, listen, he was doing anti-gay Christian counseling. I'm against anti-gay Christian counseling, whether the counselor is gay or straight. Okay, so Dustin, please don't attribute to me things that I very clearly didn't say. Eric wrote in and said, tell the truth, Pakman. Biden's inflation caused a recession as consumers tightened their belts. People react to high prices by cutting back on food and travel. This news is nothing to celebrate. There is no evidence of that. There's no evidence of that. If you believe that the COVID stimulus that Biden did caused inflation, then you've got to blame Trump doubly, because Trump had two of those packages of stimuli. Packages of stimulus, I guess it would be. And also, we're seeing the inflation globally. So this is just a completely baseless claim. And there's a lot of them floating around. People aren't limited by the facts when they make claims. Basic Dad says, why doesn't Pakman simply move to Venezuela, where can live in peace and harmony with those who agree with his socialist viewpoint? Do you think this person knows a damn thing about me? Number one, I'm not a socialist. Number two, I don't like the Chavez Maduro regime of Venezuela. I think they're terrible. In fact, there's people in my audience who love the regime and are mad at me that I don't like it. I think that it's a disastrous regime that has eliminated the independence of courts and in some cases media, that has raped and pillaged the country's resources for their gain, not that of its population. I think that they're horrible. So maybe someone who likes Venezuela and is a socialist wants to move there, but I'm good, Basic Dad. Thank you. Clown wrote in. Clown says, I'm going to issue a dire warning to Musk, Pakman, and all of Trump's critics out there. If you do not want to go to prison or a re-education camp, I would refrain from any more criticism of Donald Trump. I say this because there's a very good chance that he can become president again. And with the way the country is going, I truly believe Trump is going to be hell-bent on revenge for his enemies. I know that may sound absolutely insane, but it is very plausible that something like that could easily happen. If Trump gets back into the White House, anyone who was speaking in a negative way against Trump, I believe, will be imprisoned and sent to a camp. So here's my thought, Clown. I don't deny for a second that Trump would love to do that if he became president again, but I don't think he's going to. I think he will fail to do that. But your sense of the instincts Trump would have, I can't disagree with. Last one today is from John. John says, I see Mr. Pakman playing the victim. Mr. Pakman trolls every Trump rally, but when someone trolls him, he has to make a deal about it. I wonder why Mr. Pakman didn't troll 2,000 Mules for only 30 seconds. Actually, we looked at like 15 minutes of 2,000 Mules. It's a joke. 2,000 Mules trolls itself. I don't even really have to do anything. John goes on, Mr. Pakman's narrative is getting destroyed as Americans are more concerned with the inflation and gas prices and the terrible rise in crime in mostly all the Democrat-run areas. Democrat-run areas. We've talked about inflation. Gas prices are coming down quite quickly. Crime in democratic cities, crime is in cities. Cities tend to be democratic. Safe cities are run by Democrats. Less safe cities are run by Democrats. It's a very old trope. And also important, by crime rate, the crime rates are often high in rural and suburban conservative areas. But narrative, right? That definitely gets in the way of a good narrative. Send in your messages, info@davidpakman.com. They may be used on a future show. And remember that Tuesday, July 26th at 6 p.m. Eastern is the next David Pakman Show Viewer Town Hall. We'll stream live on Pakman Live. Hope to see you there, and we'll see you on today's bonus show.